Warsaw, August 5th, 1944. 6 in the morning. The fires were not from bombs. They were deliberate, building by building, street by street, set by men who were specifically chosen because they had no conscience left to restrain them. A German officer watching from a distance later wrote in his journal, found only after his death, Dirlewanger's men were slaughtering everyone, setting people on fire. It wasn't war, it was a massacre. That man wore the same uniform. Why, he had survived the Eastern Front. He had seen things most humans never will, and he was still shaking when he wrote those words. Now imagine what the people of Warsaw's Wola district were experiencing. In a single day, August 5th, 1944, an estimated 10,000 civilians were killed. Not soldiers, not resistance fighters, grandmothers, nurses, infants. And at the center of it all stood one man, one name that even hardened SS generals whispered about with disgust. Oskar Dirlewanger, the man the Nazis themselves called a problem. This is his story, and this is exactly how it ended. You're watching WW2 Time Tales, where we go deeper into the Second World War than any history book ever dared. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now and turn on the bell. We drop new documentaries every week. Now, let's go back to where this monster began. Würzburg, Germany, September 26, 1895. Oskar Dirlewanger is born into a respectable, middle-class Bavarian family. He goes to school, earns a real doctorate in political science in 1922. He is educated, articulate, and by all accounts, intelligent, which makes what he became all the more chilling. When World War I erupted, he enlisted immediately. He was wounded 6 times. He earned both the Iron Cross first and second class. His German biographer, historian Knut Stang, one wrote that the trenches permanently fractured Dirlewanger's psychology, reshaping him into someone defined by what Stang called sexual sadism and alcoholism. After the war, he never settled. He joined the Nazi Party in 1923. He ran a knitwear factory. He became a local SA leader in 1932. Then in 1934, his mask came completely off. He was convicted of raping a 13-year-old girl and abusing additional minors, stripped of his rank, his academic title, and his freedom. Released in 1936. In July 1939, days before Germany invaded Poland, Dirlewanger wrote a personal letter to Heinrich Himmler requesting admission into the Waffen-SS. Himmler's own office rejected him. The rejection letter explicitly cited his conviction for immoral activity with an underage girl. He was turned down for being too criminal by the SS. The only reason that rejection didn't stick was his old friend, SS General Gottlob Berger, head of SS recruitment. Berger pulled strings. By 1940, the conviction had been quietly overturned. Dirlewanger was back in uniform, commanding a unit of convicted criminals assembled specifically for dirty work in occupied Europe. Their name, SS Sonderkommando Dirlewanger. Their first recruits, poachers, men who could hunt, track, and kill without hesitation, and who would do anything to stay out of prison. The unit's first posting was occupied Poland, supervising Jewish labor camps in the Lublin region under SS officer Odilo Globachnik, to the architect of mass deportations across Eastern Europe. Within weeks, the SS itself was filing complaints. Dirlewanger was fabricating charges of ritual murder against Jewish men, a medieval anti-Semitic lie he used as a weapon, then demanding ransoms of up to 15,000 zloty, pay or be shot. He personally selected women from the camps, brought them to his quarters, assaulted them, and ordered them killed afterwards so they could never testify. Theft was systematic. Livestock, food, certain invaluables stripped from prisoners were sold on the black market. SS Judge Georg Conrad Morgan investigated and formally documented random killings and severe prisoner abuse. There were serious discussions about prosecuting Dirlewanger under the Nazis' own laws. Every prosecution attempt was blocked by Berger. Instead of facing justice, the unit was transferred somewhere even darker, where oversight was thinner and the killing could go completely unchecked. Belarus, February 1942. See historian Christian Ingrau, who wrote the definitive academic account of the Dirlewanger Brigade, described their operations in Belarus as taking place beyond any institutional constraint. The pattern was ruthlessly simple. Before dawn, the unit encircled a village suspected of sheltering partisans. Every resident, the elderly, children, nursing mothers, was herded into barns or large wooden structures. Doors were barred from outside. The buildings were set on fire. Even machine gun crews covered every exit. Anyone who broke through the burning walls was shot immediately. Dirlewanger also developed his own targeting system. He flew a light reconnaissance plane over suspected villages. If his aircraft drew gunfire, he marked the location, returned at dawn, and burned the entire settlement to the ground. During Operation Cottbus in 1943, Dirlewanger's unit alone reported killing approximately 14,000 enemy combatants. German forces across the entire operation lost roughly 60 soldiers total. That arithmetic tells you everything. Civilians were also forced to walk ahead of German troops on roads suspected of containing mines, used as human detonators. Those who survived one explosion were driven forward again. Historians Timothy Snyder and Christian Ingrao estimate the brigade killed between 30,000 and 120,000 civilians in Belarus alone and destroyed approximately 200 villages. 200 villages are wiped from the map. August 1st, 1944. The Polish Home Army launches the Warsaw Uprising. Red and white flags rise above the barricades. For one electric moment, hope returns to a city living under occupation for 5 years. Hitler's response, delivered within 24 hours, destroy Warsaw completely, kill everyone, make it an example for all of Europe. The Dirlewanger Brigade entered the city on August 4th. On the morning of August 5th, Wola unit advanced through the Wola district and killed virtually every person they encountered. Survivors who later testified to the Polish Institute of National Remembrance described civilians lured into the streets with promises of safe evacuation, then herded into courtyards and factory yards where machine guns opened on the crowds. Bodies were piled, doused with fuel, and burned on public streets. In broad daylight, 3 hospitals were stormed. Patients were shot where they lay. An 18-year-old Belgian soldier named Matthias Schenk, conscripted against his will and attached to the unit, later testified that he witnessed SS men crushing the skulls of wounded soldiers with rifle butts while nurses were dragged away screaming. Schenk later founded a Polish relief organization to atone for what he had been forced to witness. His testimony remains in the historical record. Rape was the norm, he testified. The killing of civilians was not incidental. It was the mission. When the unit located a facility holding approximately 500 children, Dirlewanger ordered every child killed. To preserve ammunition, his men carried out the murders by hand, with rifle butts and bayonets. 500 children, by hand. Between August 5th and 7th, between 30,000 and 40,000 civilians were killed in Wola alone. The smell of burning human flesh hung over the district for days. The Wola massacre became, and remains, one of the largest deliberate civilian massacres of the entire Second World War. 6 weeks later, on September 30th, 1944, Oskar Dirlewanger was awarded the Knight's Cross, one of Nazi Germany's highest military honors. The Reich rewarded him for Wola. By late 1944, Germany's war was dying on every front. The brigade was redeployed, first to suppress the Slovak national uprising, then to Hungary to slow the Soviet advance. Recruitment had collapsed into coercion. Political prisoners from concentration camps were given one choice: join the unit or face immediate execution. They joined, but they were waiting for any opening to escape. Through December 1944, hundreds of men crossed voluntarily into Soviet lines, choosing captivity over continued service. Those caught defecting were shot on the spot. Discipline evaporated. The unit that had terrorized 3 countries across 5 years was now dissolving from the inside. By May 1945, it was over. June 1st, 1945. Altshausen, southern Germany. Dirlewanger has shed his uniform and assumed a false name. He is hiding in a remote hunting lodge in the Swabian countryside, counting on the chaos of post-war Germany to swallow him whole. It doesn't work. A former Jewish prisoner from the Stary Jikov labor camp, someone Dirlewanger had personally extorted at gunpoint, recognized him. He reported the location to French occupation authorities. Dirlewanger was arrested and taken to a detention facility. On the night of June 4 to 6, 1945, documented in the testimony of his cellmate, Luftwaffe officer Anton Fusinger, Polish guards serving within the French occupation forces entered the cell in the dark. They beat him through the night. By morning, he could not stand. His skull had been fractured. French authorities issued a death certificate on June 7, 1945, citing natural causes, a formality that convinced almost no one. For years, rumors spread that he had escaped, that he was serving in the French Foreign Legion, that he had fled to Egypt. In November 1960, a French court ordered his remains exhumed. Forensic examination confirmed his identity beyond doubt. Cause of death: severe blunt force trauma to the skull. He died in a cell, in the dark, beaten to death. No judge, no jury, no formal sentence read aloud in a courtroom. Just the dark and the people he had tried to erase from history. Kurt von Gottberg, Dirlewanger's commanding general in Belarus, who ordered entire regions declared dead zones, was captured by British forces and committed suicide on May 31, 1945, before he could be tried. Or Erich von dem Bachzelewski, who oversaw anti-partisan warfare and commanded the crushing of Warsaw, cooperated fully at Nuremberg, testified against his colleagues, and avoided execution. West Germany eventually caught up with him. He died in prison in 1972. Gottlob Berger, the man who made all of it possible, who shielded Dirlewanger from prosecution for years, was sentenced to 25 years at Nuremberg. He served less than 3, where he was released in 1951 and lived freely in West Germany until 1975. That last name matters, because imperfect justice is still part of the record. The Third Reich lasted 12 years. It promised 1,000. What those 12 years actually produced was a brigade of convicted criminals given weapons and permission, operating across 3 countries for 5 years, killing somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 civilians. They burned villages in Belarus that no longer appear on any map. They killed children in Warsaw whose names were never written down. They reduced an entire district of a European capital to ash in 72 hours. The man responsible died with a fractured skull in a French detention cell, listed officially as natural causes. History doesn't always deliver the endings it owes, but it records everything. The survivors testified, the investigators documented, the forensic teams exhumed, and 80 years later, we are still here telling this story so that none of it gets buried alongside the men who committed it. If this hits you, if you felt the weight of what actually happened in those streets, then share this video. Put it in front of someone who thinks they already know World War II. Drop a comment below. What detail shocked you most? The Knight's Cross awarded 6 weeks after Wola? The fraudulent death certificate? The prisoner who recognized him and reported him? Subscribe to WW2 Tales and hit the bell. Every week, we bring you stories like this, documented, accurate, and told the way they deserve to be told. We'll see you in the next one.